Padres fans, we got to talk about some pretty crazy things that the MLB insider mill is churning out about Albert Pujols, the potential managerial candidate for the San Diego Padres. What's going on, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode. Padres Digest, thank you very much for tuning into the show. It come to terms with the fact that we weren't good enough to win a World Series, but has also convinced ourselves that maybe a new manager fixes all of it. Let's talk about it on this episode. If you want to drop a comment on anything managerial related, love to hear from you guys. You do see baseball vastly different. You see the whole spectrum of baseball differently than I do as a total audience, and it is great to have that dialogue. Also, if there's anything else you want to see a video on, drop a comment on that as well. As always, I will ask you at the end of this little spiel if you want to subscribe. Great. No worries. Let's talk about baseball. Mike Cameron. Does that name mean anything to you? He was briefly a Padre. He also collided with Carlos Beltran in the outfield. He had a good career. He was on a Padres podcast that he works on now as part of Sports Illustrated, and came out with a pretty staunch or pretty solid stance against Pujols, who is getting an opportunity to interview with the Padres as manager. He has been listed as a person of interest. He has passed on the Angels, one of his former teams. I'm getting to this quote now there, but this though from Cameron. Players will say if you're hiring someone of Albert's status, it means that you're trying to glorify this particular guy, and they don't need that right now, Cameron told Kyle Glazer. You just need a leader who can corral everyone so the players can go out and play and not talk about their manager every single day. I think that is by far not a good situation to put this team in at this particular time. That is in and of itself maybe more of my own confirmation by it, and I will get back to more factual quotes, but I will interjecting some of my opinion and thought here on this, in as much to say that in previous videos talking about all of this, I've said that. And if you look at the previous now 5 managers for the San Diego Padres, you can, sprinkle in also 2 interim managers who are now also managers at other major league clubs. So 7 total front guys, and no singular one of them cracked the code here. Granted, the roster has changed a fair amount over the last decade and has largely improved while still having some, like a Maldonado here or there. But overall, the talent is pretty prolific on this squad, so the expectations rightfully are high. And, I'm not going to attribute anything to being like, oh, these guys all universally were the wrong pick because of X, Y, or Z factors, but the one thing that they really didn't try with any of these guys was the radical pick. And maybe that's a former player thing. Maybe that's a cultural and language barrier and identity thing. Maybe that's a managerial style thing. Maybe that's a random luck thing. Maybe that's a million other things. I don't know what it is about the radical pick that sometimes can just be like, oh, this is the one angle that we approached all of this different from, and it did crack the case. But in looking at kind of who's available, I come back to Pujols being one of those. I get the vibe that he's just the radical pick. I will go to another quote. We'll move down the article that was on Sports Illustrated corresponding with this podcast from Mike Cameron talking about it. The Angels gave Pujols the chance, like I said, for their managerial vacancy month before he ended those talks. Pujols was linked to the Baltimore Orioles job as well. Like, this is a guy who he managed the Dominican League. His player credentials and bona fides are, I believe, beyond reproach. Get at me in the I will Mike Shildt you in the that'll be me in the comments if you're trying to say that Albert Pujols was not a fantastic, regardless of any PED links. He still snatched Bradledge's soul on live television. We've only seen that done by like a scant few other athletes. He ended that man's family dynasty for 1,000 generations with that home run ball that he hit. So this is a guy that is getting interest in all that, but yet here we have somebody who is, maybe Mike Cameron's not like legacy establishment media, but he's inside baseball. He's a former player, and he's better. I'm not trying to say that he doesn't see baseball better than me, or I don't see better. Like, I'm not. He's just a guy who sees it totally differently because he's a former player, and I get that he feels like he's like, oh, I know how the code. But to me, if a guy has the take of no, don't get the crazy pick, go find somebody who has already been a proven manager, because this is what Cameron keeps talking about, that plenty of other potential candidates like David Ross, Scott Servais, Brandon Hyde, Rocco Baldelli, they've all overseen 100-win teams. But so to me, if the argument is being made, and maybe my logic is all worldly here, and I'm just straight confused, but I feel like if an establishment-ish type figure in the baseball community is making the argument that, like, no, that pick is too crazy, go with one of these guys, and I'm saying the one thing that they haven't done recently is go with the crazy pick, that to me is almost like a reverse confirmation bias, that Pujols could actually be the right pick. Like, if people who see baseball and look at it and value it as, oh, like, go with the proven guy who he's won 100 games as the manager of the Twins, that means that he's going to understand Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts and the delicate intricacies of all of this from a border town and a vibes of pressure from changing. Like, there's so many million different factors that went into winning 100 games with the Twins versus potentially winning a World Series with the Padres that I just don't get the correlation there. I feel like baseball manager is a glorified babysitter who you got to make a couple of tough decisions every week in terms of, like, when do I put this guy in or not? But maybe you don't even really do that if you're Albert Pujols and you're just a delegator and I don't know. Like I said, he also, though, how many thousands of baseball games? We used to have player managers. Frank Robinson might have ended that in the 70s, and I get that that's like, oh my gosh, 50 years ago, but like, for a long time, the role of a manager was largely potentially ceremonial and ornamental on teams. So I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I see establishment people, and maybe I should have put in some piercings and all the tattoos, be like, punk rock on this take. But I don't know, man. I feel like if someone's saying, "Oh, this is too crazy," then I'm just like, I guess I got to touch that light. Let me touch that light. Let me get burnt by this. But to me, with what we've got, talent-wise, and in terms of how long it's locked in for, and in terms of just the existing variables of, like, I think we've seen who Manny and Fernando are, and that they're not going to necessarily change into new guys because a new a new sheriff rolls into town. So you got to be able to be like, okay, we'll take the existing pieces as are, and we'll mold them into something that is a greater than the sum of its total parts. So I don't want to say that is Pujols, but in hearing what Mike Cameron had to say, it made me just go down that rabbit hole of thought. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment below. And like I said at the beginning, if you want to hit the subscribe button, it would be fantastically appreciated. If not, zero worries. Talk to you guys next time.